to listen to it. I got 50 shop and market right, and Sundays I go working. 1 day to the gospel right, and just go right on Tuesday. Gonna live my life tonight. I've gotta live my life tonight.
U2 from a very early and rough demo. Already, the group comprising of Bono, The Edge, Larry and Adam Clayton had had two names, the Larry Mullen Band and then The Hype. The group was still searching for the right name, one that felt comfortable. The final name, U2, came about as a suggestion by Steve Rappert of the Radiators from Space.
We were sort of really trying to find something that wasn't, the usual. And we were asking anyone who might know. And in fact, the name U2 was a suggestion from Stephen Rappert, Stephen Averill, who he was the vocalist with the Radiators from Space, and he's since done a lot of sleeve artwork for us. And it was amongst a few other names, but it was just, even at that stage, I can remember not being totally sure, but it was definitely nothing that people could pin down. So, that was enough for me. It was just new.
While the school authorities were being unusually helpful in providing a place for U2 to rehearse, not all their parents, at least in the beginning, were so enthusiastic about their sons playing in a rock band, as Adam explains.
I think Larry certainly got a certain amount of hassle. Bono did, and myself, and of course Edge got a certain amount of irritation.
We were just talking to Adam's mum the other night, actually. She was laughing about it, but, both Adam and Bono did spend the odd night kind of sleeping in someone's car, and I think Larry was sort of forbidden to go out and had kind of his knuckles wrapped for being in after 12 o'clock and that sort of thing.
In fact, the first demo session that we ever did was met with Larry's father knocking at the door at 12 o'clock and saying, "Is my son in there?" And I think Barry Devlin was there as well. There was a few people around, and all the CBS people were sitting in there. He said, "Well, if my son's there, I want to take him home. He's got school in the morning." Because Larry was 15 at this stage, and his old man wasn't having any of this rock and roll nonsense. He listened to jazz, and that's where music is. And who are these people, anyway, that you're playing with?
I'd still like to add that he still comes to the studio sessions and to the gigs and says, "Where's my son? It's 12 o'clock, he should be at home."
My own father, I think, is probably frustrated singer himself, and still does. He sings in opera. He also painted. He also was part of, he's like me in a lot of respects. So I think underneath it all, he kind of was glad to see that I was doing something which maybe he wasn't able to do because of the political and economic climate of the 30s or whenever he was a teenager.
Adam Clayton's background was possibly more cosmopolitan than his three new colleagues. His parents had lived abroad for several years, and Adam found settling down to mundane schoolwork very difficult. Already, he had displayed a tendency to not fit in with what school authorities deemed the normal regulations, and just prior to arriving in a rather shell-shocked state at Mount Temple, he had been ejected from St Columba's Public School in Rathfarnham. Adam was unique in U2 insofar as he had already been in the group, the Max Quad Band, and Jo Clayton, Adam's mother, wasn't too put out at her son's musical intentions. In fact, she was delighted. Was this because he had been getting out of hand?
No, Adam was a very quiet, introverted child who took no part in extracurricular activities at boarding school, for which I was very sorry because I thought he was missing such a lot. And then one day when he was 14, he telephoned me from school and said somebody was forming a band and he'd like to play bass guitar. Would I meet him in town and buy him a guitar? And I was so delighted that he was taking some interest in something that I rushed into town and bought him an electric bass guitar. Worst thing I ever did. It cost £53. I'll never forget it.
After months of rehearsing at Mount Temple, U2 had improved enormously. They had progressed from being abysmal to being simply very bad, their repertoire consisting largely of half-finished Rolling Stones songs. Their all-important goal became, however dubious the playing, to try and finish a song, a case of never mind the quality, get to the end.
It actually took us a year before we could play anything. We'd come down to practice and we'd start a song, and on a good night we'd get halfway through and then it would fall apart. I remember one classic occasion where we actually decided to play in one of the discos that was sort of held in the cellar, and kind of half an hour before we went on, I suddenly realised that we'd never finished any of the songs in rehearsal, and we didn't know how to end them. And this was something that we'd never thought about. So I grabbed Bono and Larry, and we ran upstairs with an acoustic guitar and a few drumsticks to try and decide on the endings of the songs we were playing. And in fact we didn't. We failed totally, and the songs, we played kind of 3 songs, each was 15 minutes, the last 10 minutes being us trying to end it together. Kind of, you know, everyone would stop except Larry, or everyone would stop except Adam, and then we'd all have to come in again. It was mayhem.
The band talked their parents into driving them to gigs, and later they were to be slagged off as middle-class wets. Mrs. Clayton remembers seeing U2 for the first time.
It was simply dreadful. They played in a hall in Hose, and it was terrible. We had to go, you see, because the boys had no transport apart from that which their parents provided, and they'd begged and begged to be given this gig. So we had to go and stay and bring them home again with all their gear. Oh, it was awful. The noise was just dreadful. I think we had to go outside and wait till it was over. Without the mums, I think U2 would have found it very hard to get started. They had no transport and they had no money. And the mothers ran them to every gig with all their gear piled into the car on top of the boys, and then we would pick them up at some ungodly hour in the centre of town and bring them home again. And I think the boys have appreciated that, particularly Larry's mother and David's mother. They were absolutely wonderful.
So, I mean, at that point in time, did you think, gosh, I'll be glad when this is over?
Well, of course, I just thought it was a phase, and I was hoping that, you know, he would get down to some hard work and turn into a surgeon or a lawyer or something equally respectable. But it wasn't to be. Well, not yet anyway.
Ironically, their complete inability to duplicate chart hits proved ultimately to be their biggest asset. If you can't do other people's songs, well, why not write your own?
We started writing our own material very early on, simply because we couldn't play other people's material. We weren't just 4 musicians brought together. We came on as 4 people. Larry was able to play and read music, that's all. And we really built the band around the drums in that respect. And we started to learn together. We built the band around a spark because we got off of being around each other. And when we were together, other people got off and being in the same room. So what we were doing was special, even if it was sort of cacophonous, or even if it was badly played, it had something. And that's what we built U2 around, was the feeling, the kind of spark, the energy that was there. And it was years later that musicianship started to develop, and it really did develop. And, you know, it was a surprise to all of us when we found out that we really could play.